What's up fish friends, it's Alex here, your friendly reef dog. And today I'm going to take you to ReefDreams in Winchester, where we're going to take a look around their awesome mixed reef display tank. Now for those of you who haven't been there, ReefDreams is one of the premier marine aquatic specialists in the UK, so they really know what they're doing, and their tank is pretty cool. They're getting some insane growth, and you won't believe quite how simple the filtration is. So we're going to talk to Steve, the owner. He's going to show you around the tank, tell you all about it, and then I'm going to do a quick 60-second spin around the shop so you can check it out and see what it's like. Now I'd love to do more videos like this, so if you have an awesome display tank you'd like to share with the good people of YouTube, send me a photo on Instagram or by email and I'll check it out. Details in the description below. Right, enough of that. We're going to go to ReefDreams, meet Steve, and he'll tell you all about the tank. So I'm here at ReefDreams then with Steve. Steve, thanks for having us in today.
Good to see you.
And Steve's going to tell us all about the tank. So Steve, what's the tank, what are the dimensions, all that sort of stuff?
Okay, so this is our Red Sea Reefer Peninsula 650, which is just over 5 foot, 5 foot 3 inches. Holds 650 litres with the sump. We set this up in October 2017, so it's just over 2 years now. Yep. And we started it with real reef rock and colony, and that was a fairly baptism by fire, because we added about £1,000 of fish on the first day.
Oh really? So how did that go? Because I've done the same way and I love that way.
Yeah.
But people say that you're not supposed to do it that way, you know, it's a quick start. So
yeah, it's certainly a quick start. It tends to be the method we use all the time now on customer installs. It certainly gets you over the initial period of colonising bacteria.
Okay.
There is a longer period where the tank is still settling. So it did take almost a year to get to the point where we've got corals growing almost to demand.
Right.
So it will certainly get your fish in there and get you over the initial cycle, but you do need to allow further time to get the tank established.
To set it ready for your corals and all that.
Exactly.
Sort of stuff. So tell us about some of the fish you've got in there.
So we've got a liking for wrasse. So you'll see a heavily dominated tank by wrasse. Dominated by a large Red Sea flasher wrasse, the A-line wrasse.
Yeah.
There's actually a pair of them in there, and it's quite a spectacle when they display.
They puff out their fins and that sort of stuff.
Exactly, it will transform and go almost electric blue.
Oh cool.
Hopefully you'll get some footage of that at some point during the day. On top of that, we've got things like the diamond tail, another flasher wrasse. A Bell's flasher wrasse, which is rarely seen in the trade, which is up in the top of the tank there. We've got a nasotang and a gem tang in there.
Okay.
Primarily for algae grazing. It doesn't matter what tank you've got, you'll always get algae, so it's a matter of controlling those sort of things. We've also got a few custard donations in here.
Okay.
We've got a Ventralis Amphia, which was out of the customer tank till his tank split, and we rehomed it. So that's actually been in captivity for 3 or 4 years now, which is quite unusual for that particular species. We've got a copper band in there, which is great for keeping the aptasia at bay, which does come in on every tank.
Yeah. So I saw him earlier. So I've never had any luck with copper bands. Yeah. But he was going for your food. Were you putting in mysis or brine shrimp?
Mysis and brine shrimp is what we do a mix of that each day. But he'll even take pellet.
Okay.
Right. The only thing we've got to watch is we can't put clams or acans in here.
Okay.
So there's always a downside to everything.
Yeah. So but other than you've got loads of euphilia and that sort of stuff.
Loads of euphilia. It tends to leave those alone.
Doesn't nip your polyps on your SPS?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the thing with the SPS is they're growing so fast now that really, you know, a few nips here and there isn't going to disturb them.
Okay.
And it's something to put up with for the benefits that it brings in keeping aptasia at bay.
Okay.
We've also got a pencil wrasse in there.
Yep.
And we've got a pair of Randall's Assessors, which
these are the swim
upside down. There's actually a pair of them, but they disappear for 4 to 6 weeks every so often, and they'll go off and breed. Right. Although we've never actually seen the youngsters, but we just notice they're missing, and then suddenly they'll pop up and feed up again, ready for the next breeding cycle.
Pretty cool. Okay, and you've got some sort of Halichoris wrasses in there, have you, for pest control, or sort of some of the...
Indeed, well, we've got the Potter's wrasse,
Yeah.
which is going around and pecking at all the microfauna.
So he's another really tough one, isn't he? So,
yeah,
because
quite
again, I've
difficult
never tried him because I'm scared he'll die.
Yeah,
What's
they are.
the
The secret is having a mature tank.
Right.
So when it first went in, we couldn't actually see what he was feeding on, but he was going around the SPS and certainly, pecking at the SPS. We don't think he was actually disturbing the polyps.
Okay.
But there must have been some microfauna, whether it's pods or whatever that he was feeding on. But he went in about 3/4 of an inch, so a really tiny one. So you would actually expect them to be eating stuff that we wouldn't necessarily see.
Yeah, okay. And is he now eating frozen food and pellet, that sort of stuff?
Frozen food,
everything
that goes in the tank. It's quite a competition in there.
Yeah.
So everyone fights for themselves and gets what they can. But we're not shy on the food.
No, okay.
We're feeding a lot of food, and probably 4, 5, 6 times a day.
Okay, so and you don't sort of put in like a cube or whatever. How much do you reckon you put in?
I would say we'd probably put in cube terms probably 12 cubes a day. A whole pack.
12 cubes a day, and pellets as well.
And pellets.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just for the fish.
Right. So that will bring. We'll come back onto what you feed corals in a second, but that takes us onto nutrients. Because if I was chucking a blister pack in every day, I'm going to have algae everywhere, phosphate. So what do you do to control that?
It's a very simple setup we've got here. A decent skimmer on it, which is slightly oversized for the system. So we're running one of the new Red Sea skimmers.
Yeah.
And that's doing the majority of the mechanical filtration. We don't even run the socks in here now.
Right, okay.
The rest of it is biological in the real reef rock. And what we found is where we've used this in systems, it's actually trying to get nutrient into the system that's the problem. In the past, it's always been very difficult to control algae.
Yeah.
And what we're actually finding now is trying to keep your nitrate and phosphate up in some circumstances.
So you don't use an algae bed or
don't
GFO
use an algae bed.
Like
we do run GFO just to keep the phosphate down.
Yeah.
We have run little bits of Nopox in the past where we've needed to actually control the nitrate.
Right.
But in general, it runs fairly high.
Okay.
So we've got a nitrate level between 10 and 15.
Yeah.
And phosphate is 0.05 at the moment.
0.05. So phosphate is kind of around where you might expect it, but nitrates are higher than some people try to keep them. So, and this is thriving. You've got great colours. So that's kind of that. I guess that feeds the corals.
So it feeds the corals as well. We do add additional feed for the corals.
Okay.
So we're currently trialling the new Red Sea Reef Energy AB Plus.
Yeah. Okay.
Which will hopefully be out in the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks.
Right. Okay.
And certainly with using the LEDs and the food, we've seen a massive increase in growth rate.
Okay, so since you've changed over to the Red Sea lights and the AB Plus food, that's kind of kicked on a bit.
Exactly. I mean, this coral here has probably doubled in size in the last sort of 3 months. The Montipora plate was all stripped out 3 to 4 months ago.
Okay.
And that's again ready for another prune.
Okay.
We have to keep that one under control. And there's a little bit of powder food used as and when we feel it needs a bit more nutrient in there. We tend to do, Shaun, who runs the tank most of the time, is doing majority of the control by eye.
Okay.
So if
not obsessive testing, just that looks wrong, I'm going to have a look at something.
It'll do weekly tests just to check everything's in balance. But as soon as you start to see a little bit of cyano appear, then it's time to change the phosphate media.
Okay.
If the corals are looking a little bit pale, he'll start to feed more powder.
Okay.
And more of the reef energy. Trace elements he's managing by eye again.
Oh really? Okay.
So not proportionally to what we're adding. You can add it based on the calcium when you're using the Reef Foundation from Red Sea. But Shaun does it more by eye, looking at the corals.
And that's advanced level stuff.
That is advanced level stuff. He's got donkey's years of experience.
So if a red coral looks a bit off, he's like potassium and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
will do ICPs on a regular basis. Just to double check the parameters and check no contaminants. But in general, they're pretty much spot on.
Okay.
So it's amazing that you can actually control control elements based on what you're actually looking at.
Yeah, okay. So filtration then just basically a big old skimmer and a load of rock.
Exactly.
And then the occasional bit of GFO, that's it.
Yep.
So nothing too fancy.
Nothing too
bit
fancy.
of Nopox every now and then if you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really basic stuff, because a lot of people will overdo it, won't they, and put in loads of stuff. I do.
Yep.
I've got Cheeto, I've got GFO, a skimmer, everything.
Exactly. In the early days, obviously, you can't suddenly start chucking in 12 cubes of food a day and expecting your tank not to turn into an algae mess.
Yeah.
It takes time to build it up. And that's where we're at now, where we're having to feed continually every day just to keep the corals satisfied.
Wow. Okay. So if you feed less, the corals start to look lose a bit of colour. That sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly, and the growth rate slows down. With mysis and brine, you've got huge euphilia in the tank, and they'll be catching a proportion of it.
Okay.
You know, things that the fish miss, they'll catch, and that'll feed them. Mm-hmm. So we're trying all sorts, but in general, it's a very simple recipe.
Yeah. Okay.
And that way, customers coming into the store aren't going to be phased by a row of umpteen additives that we're doing and trying to explain that every time.
Yeah.
Keeping it simple is achievable for most people.
And this is probably representative of like some proper mixed reef, isn't it? So that's what most people will end up going for.
Exactly.
Okay.
Minus the things that we can't keep with a copper ban.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so you mentioned sort of you had issues with stripping before when you weren't feeding enough. So what sort of problems have you had with this tank?
Initially, we did struggle to get the SPS to grow.
Okay.
And that was purely down to the maturity of the system.
Yeah. Okay.
Once that had settled down, got stability, one person looking after the tank, that being Shaun.
Okay.
And you're not having multiple people doing their own thing with it.
Okay.
That has really settled down. And now whatever we put in here pretty much grows.
Right. Okay.
Even if it's not in the ideal position.
Yeah. Okay. Because so basically it's over 2 years old now, so it's pretty much established and had a few issues early on, but now it's there, it's solid.
But there's still things that we'll move around and they'll do better in one position than another. But that's the nature of corals.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always trying to sort of cram 40 metres of coral growth.
Yeah.
into 24 inches.
Okay. So that's the point with growth. The Monte stellata is huge at the moment. So you must be getting to the stage where you're pruning a little bit, are you?
Mainly when we're cleaning the glass.
Right. Okay. So you accidentally bunch your stuff off.
So literally, it's accidental fragging. It's such a dominating piece that we'd actually like it to grow up to the surface. Brilliant. And I'm sure we'll end up trimming branches as we go.
Right.
But we do take frags of some things when needed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But generally, just let it grow out and
exactly, unless it's shading something below.
Okay.
Which is always a problem.
Yeah.
Bit too much shading.
Right. So there's one coral that you've got a little garden of Goniopora in the corner.
Yes.
And Gonies are notoriously fussy, aren't they? I've always had problems with keeping them. So and yours are just thriving. The long tentacles are out. So what's the secret of that? What are they like?
The secret really is the addition of manganese to most of the salts.
Okay.
That seems to be the key element that they require.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the flow right, so they're actually getting a good supply of food and water. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much it. It's a lot easier than it used to be.
Okay.
Years ago, you would never be able to keep Goniopora.
No. Okay.
Whereas now they're much easier.
And you mentioned salt. So what salt do you do? Water changes on this as well?
We don't. We do a regular water change probably every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe out to 4 weeks.
10%, 20%.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not massive water changes. We're using the same salt throughout the shop.
So what salt do you use?
That's the Tropic Marine.
Tropic Marine
Pro.
Okay.
And that's purely because we use it throughout the shop, so we can move corals one tank to another without any acclimation. Exactly.
Okay. And you also mentioned flow. So we'll come on to the lights in a second. But what flow have you got on this?
Currently, because it's peninsula style, it's actually quite difficult to get enough flow into this tank. So we've got an MP40 either side of the weir, and that gave us enough flow probably up to about 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay.
When things started to really grow up, and you couldn't get enough flow to the other end of the tank.
Right. Okay.
So we were struggling at that point. Had the pumps on max, running in a gyre mode, and it still wasn't really providing enough flow for the corals. Fortunately, Red Sea have are bringing out a new pump, a Reef Waves, based on jar technology. And we were lucky enough to get a demonstration model for our Fragfest event, and that has made a difference and allowed flow down to the other end.
Okay. So as in the end of the weir box?
Exactly, the opposite end. And that's moving a huge volume of water. And that's made a difference. All these parameters added together are what makes the coral grow.
Yeah.
So not one thing is dominant.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll see an improvement with the feeding, you'll see an improvement with the flow, with the right lighting. Bring it all together, then you can really grow a tank out.
It's never one thing. It's not just because your nitrates are too high or whatever it is. You've got to get everything right.
Exactly.
And you've also, you switched over to, what lights were you on before?
We were running the AI Hydra 26s.
And what, about 6 months ago you switched to the Red Seas?
Yeah, might even be a little bit more than that now.
Longer than that, okay.
And initially we did have to turn them down slightly. The more delicate LPS got a bit too much light off them.
Right, okay.
So a bit of adjustment on the whites down to about 80%.
Okay.
And then everything's done really well since then.
Okay.
And we've certainly seen more growth with those lights. The spread of light around the aquarium is much better.
So you've got 4 of these.
4 on a
5'3".
Yeah.
And that's still, there don't seem to be any areas of shading with this.
Absolutely not. No. I mean, we've got a par meter in store.
Yeah.
And we're getting decent par all the way to the edges of the tank.
Okay.
Which is allowing us, to grow things in overhangs because there's enough reflection as well.
Yeah.
Just to grow the light. The non-light loving corals as well.
Right, okay, so it does well for everything then.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I guess that's more or less everything. Is there anything else that we've missed that you want to tell us about?
It's running out of space now.
Yeah, okay.
Which is why we've got this big bare branch in the tank at the moment.
Okay.
Purely because that's going to be the next stage of adding some more corals.
Right, okay.
With the corals growing out, we've got a lot of kind of shaded areas down the bottom.
Okay.
But we want some more SPS in there.
Yeah.
And therefore we just add another branch and then grow another structure in the tank.
So what kind of SPS are you going on there? Sort of tabling or branching or
exactly. They're going to be really high light, high flow.
Yeah, okay.
They're going to be perched right at the top of the tank. Yeah. So it's going to have to be more of a tabling acros, which I think will suit the tank at the moment.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff like the Montiporas, a lot of Montiporas in here that are loving their position at the moment, but they're probably going to get a bit shaded in the future, which will end up turning the lights up again.
Okay. And in terms of fish plans, any more fish that you've got in mind to add?
Not really.
How many fish have you got actually?
It's probably 15 or so.
15, okay.
Yeah. That's typical of a phone going.
Carry on. We'll ignore that. So 15 or so, and there's 2 or 3 big ones. There's the Naso tang, the gem tang, and the copper band.
Yeah.
But quite low on the fish side then.
Yes. We'd rather feed them more than have lots of fish.
Yeah, okay.
And we'd rather them do a job.
Yeah,
there's a nice balance in here. There's nothing that's really stressing anyone out.
Yeah, okay.
And that's more important than it is to have lots of fish.
Yeah, okay.
It's keeping it nice and settled. Ironically, the Ventralis Amphia seems to boss the tank along with the eggline flasher.
Okay.
So
excellent. All right. So, and any other future plans that you've got in mind?
We're currently dosing the foundation.
Yeah.
And adding the trace elements by.
So let's talk about that actually quickly. So you use the Red Sea recipe, the ABC, is it?
Exactly.
Okay, for your calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we're dosing a huge amount now.
How much are you putting?
We're putting in about 400 mils a day at the moment.
400 mil a day of each.
Of the KH.
Wow. Okay.
Slightly less of the calcium and magnesium.
Right.
So we're mixing up 10 litres at a time of the powders.
Okay. All right. So anything else before we wrap up?
I think that's
pretty much
it.
Yeah. Stuff. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to have a quick look around the shop whilst we're here, and then we'll wrap up there. So thanks very much for sharing around, Steve. It's been a pleasure. Cheers. Now, before you go, I'm going to do a quick 60-second tour around the shop just to show you what it's like. And if you enjoyed checking out the tank, show your appreciation to Steve by giving a thumbs up and telling him about it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for next week's video. Right, let's check out the shop. ReefDreams is based in Winchester in the south of England and is one of my local fish shops. And given there aren't many great marine shops in the UK, it's well worth a visit even if you live a little further away. They specialise in SPS corals and have a large SPS tank packed full of some pretty stunning colonies. They also have a high-end frag tank that's attached to the Peninsula tank we've just seen, and several other coral trays, all packed full of the good stuff. As you'd expect, there's a sizable dry goods selection with all the brands that you'd expect to see, and they of course have layer after layer of tanks for fish. Because they're one of the leading shops in the country, they often have some of the best stock going, whether that's soft corals, LPS, SPS or fish, and they recently co-hosted the UK's first major coral show called Coral Freaks. That was with another awesome shop called AAC, who you should also go and check out, and I'm really looking forward to the second instalment of that show later this year. Because they're true marine specialists, it's also a great place to go for advice, and after all, we've just heard that Shaun is basically a human ICP tester. This isn't a sponsored video, so I'm not being paid to say nice things. It genuinely is a cracking shop and one that I can happily recommend you to go and check out. You can find them on Facebook or check out their website, which I'll put in the video description. But that's enough for me, so I'll leave you to check out the rest of the shop.